Welcome to Spine Chillers, where we delve into the darkest corners of horror and mystery. I'm your host, Ilona, and today we're diving into a tale that has haunted the whispers of folklore for generations. Buckle up and dim the lights, because this story will send shivers down your spine. Our tale today is about truth or dare, the endless cycle of madness. The air was thick with the scent of cheap beer and stale cigarettes. We were 5, crammed into Sarah's basement, the low ceiling pressing in on us like a suffocating weight. The flickering light of a single bulb cast grotesque shadows that danced and writhed on the peeling paint. It was supposed to be a harmless game, a way to pass the time on a dreary Friday night. But now, as I look back, I realize it was an invitation to hell. "Truth or dare, Chris?" Sarah asked. Her voice, normally sweet and high-pitched, was now a chilling whisper in the dim light. Chris, a lanky kid with a nervous laugh, took a long swig of his beer before answering. "Dare," he replied. A collective gasp rippled through the group. Sarah grinned, her eyes glinting with a sinister light. "I dare you to go into the attic and bring down the old dusty teddy bear," she giggled. The attic was forbidden territory. Rumour had it that Sarah's grandmother had died up there, her wrinkled old body slowly decaying into a pile of bones and dust. Chris hesitated, his face paling, but the pressure of the group was too much. He stood up, his knees knocking together, and disappeared into the darkness of the stairs. We waited, a tense silence filling the room. Minutes felt like hours. Then a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house. We exchanged terrified glances. Emily shifted nervously on her seat. "Is he okay?" she asked tentatively. Jake curled up, hugging his own knees after hearing the agonizing scream. Sarah's smile widened as she looked at me. "Go on, bring him down," she urged, her voice dripping with malice. Fear propelled me to my feet. I ascended the creaking stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. The attic was pitch black, the only sound the frantic beating of my heart. I fumbled for the light switch, my fingers trembling. When the bulb finally flickered to life, a scene of horror unfolded before me. Chris was sprawled on the floor, his body contorted at an unnatural angle. A grotesque gaping wound marred his chest, and his eyes, wide with terror, stared blankly at the ceiling. A rusty old teddy bear, its eyes empty black holes, lay discarded beside him. A cold dread seeped into my bones. I stumbled backward, my mind racing. Sarah's laughter echoed in the darkness, a chilling sound that sent shivers down my spine. I turned to flee, but the door slammed shut behind me, trapping me in the attic with the horror. A low growl rumbled through the darkness, and something large and unseen moved towards me. Panic surged through me as I backed away, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Then I saw it. A pair of glowing red eyes emerged from the shadows, growing larger with each passing second. A monstrous figure, taller than any human, took shape. Its skin was pale and translucent, revealing the dark, pulsating mass of muscle and bone beneath. Its hands, long and clawed, reached out for me. I screamed, a sound lost in the chaos of my mind. The creature lunged, its razor-sharp claws inches from my face. In that final moment, as darkness claimed my vision, I realized the terrible truth. The game had chosen its victims, and we were all just pawns in a deadly ritual. The claws, a cold, metallic sheen under the dim light, were impossibly long, curved like sickles of death. They tore into my flesh with a wet, sickening crunch. Pain, a blinding, all-consuming agony, erupted in my mind. I felt my body being lifted, suspended in the air by an inhuman force. My vision blurred, a kaleidoscope of red and black. The creature's breath, rank and foul, washed over me in waves. I could feel its hot, ragged gasps against my skin, a burning sensation that mingled with the cold of terror. Its eyes, Two malevolent orbs of crimson fire seemed to bore into my soul, searching for something dark and ancient. A scream tore from my throat, a desperate plea for mercy that echoed in the confines of the attic. But there was no mercy in those inhuman depths, only hunger, a hunger that was about to be sated. I struggled, flailing my limbs in a futile attempt to break free, but the creature's grip was iron, its strength inhuman. I felt myself being drawn closer, its grotesque face looming over mine. I could see the saliva dripping from its monstrous jaws, forming glistening strands that snapped in the air. The smell of blood filled my nostrils, a metallic tang that mingled with the stench of decay. It was my blood, I realized with a cold horror. I could feel it pouring from my wounds, a warm, sticky cascade that soaked into my clothes. The creature's head tilted, its eyes narrowing in a predatory gleam. Then, with a sickeningly slow motion, it opened its mouth. Rows of jagged triangular teeth glinted in the dim light. A low growl rumbled from its throat, a deep primal sound that vibrated through my body. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the horror, but the images were already etched into my mind, a permanent scar on my soul. I could feel the creature's hot breath on my face, the rough scrape of its tongue against my skin. And then, darkness. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the attic. I was in a place without light, a void of nothingness. Yet I could feel the presence of something evil, a malevolent force that permeated the darkness. A voice, cold and distant, echoed in the void. "You have served your purpose," it said. I turned, searching for the source of the voice, but there was nothing. Just an endless abyss. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling with fear. The voice laughed, a low, sinister chuckle that sent chills down my spine. "I am the keeper of the game. You and your friends have awakened me," it answered. "Please," I begged, "let me go. I'll do anything." "You have already done what was needed," the voice replied. "But your friends are still playing," it said. The scene shifted, and I was back in Sarah's basement. The others were gathered around the table, unaware of my presence. Sarah, her face twisted with malice, was holding the old, dusty teddy bear. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine, and I saw the truth. She had known all along. "Your turn," she said, her voice echoing in the basement. "No," I whispered, but she couldn't hear me. They were trapped in the game, just as I had been. "Truth or dare?" she asked, her eyes fixed on the next victim. The cycle continued, the game never ending, always claiming new souls. And I was powerless to stop it. The basement faded into darkness once more, the echoes of their screams haunting me as I was drawn back into the void. The keeper's voice echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of my fate. "You are mine forever," its voice tormented. My heart pounded as the scene unfolded before me. Emily and Jake exchanged nervous glances, sensing the dark energy that permeated the basement. The game had begun again, and there was no way to stop it. Truth or dare? Sarah's voice rang out, deceptively innocent. "Truth," Emily answered, her voice wavering. A flicker of disappointment crossed Sarah's face, but she quickly masked it with a sly smile. "Tell us about your biggest fear," she dared. Emily hesitated, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. Finally she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm afraid of being alone in the dark. I always feel like something's watching me," she fumbled. Sarah's smile widened, her eyes glinting with an almost predatory gleam. "Interesting," she mused. The group shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension in the air. Sarah turned to the next person, Jake, who was trying to hide his apprehension behind a mask of bravado. "Truth or dare, Jake?" Sarah asked. "Dare," he said, puffing out his chest. A sinister grin spread across Sarah's face. "I dare you to go outside and knock on the neighbour's door, then run back without being seen," she giggled. Jake swallowed hard but stood up, determined to prove his bravery. He stumbled up the basement stairs and out into the night. The group waited in tense silence, listening for any sounds that might signal his return. Minutes passed like hours, the oppressive atmosphere pressing down on us. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, followed by a high-pitched scream. We all jumped, our hearts racing. The door burst open, and Jake stumbled back in, his face pale and his eyes wide with terror. "Something's out there!" he gasped, collapsing onto the floor. Before anyone could react, the light bulb above us flickered and went out, plunging the basement into darkness. Panic erupted as everyone scrambled for their phones, the small screens casting eerie shadows on their terrified faces. "Calm down. It's just a power outage." But I knew better. I could feel the presence of the creature, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next victim. The air grew colder, and a low growl echoed through the room, sending shivers down my spine. "Truth or dare, Emily?" Sarah asked. Her voice was barely a whisper, yet it carried an unmistakable menace. "Dare," Emily said, her voice trembling. "I dare you to go into the attic and bring down the old dusty teddy bear," Sarah repeated. It was that same dare again. Emily's eyes widened with fear, but she couldn't refuse. The pressure of the group was too much. She stood up, her legs shaking, and made her way to the attic door. As she climbed the creaking stairs, the darkness seemed to close in around her. The attic was a place of nightmares, filled with memories of death and decay. I followed her, my ghostly form hovering just behind. I could feel her fear, palpable and suffocating, as she reached the top of the stairs. Emily fumbled for the light switch, her fingers trembling. When the bulb finally flickered to life, she gasped at the sight before her. Chris's body still lay on the floor, his face twisted in an expression of sheer terror. The teddy bear sat next to him, its eyes black and soulless. The creature's glowing red eyes emerged from the shadows, and it lunged at her with terrifying speed. She let out a choked sob, backing away from the scene. But it was too late. Emily screamed, a sound that echoed through the attic and down into the basement. The others heard her screams and rushed to the stairs, but they were too late. The door slammed shut, trapping them in the basement. Sarah stood in front of them, her face a mask of malevolent delight. "Welcome to the game," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "You can't escape. You can only play." Desperation and fear etched into their faces. They turned to one another, realizing the horrific truth. There was no way out. The game had them in its grasp, and it wouldn't let go until it had claimed every last one of them. "Truth or dare, Jake?" Sarah asked once again. Her voice was soft, almost tender, but it held the promise of something far worse than death. Jake took a deep breath, his voice steady despite the fear that gripped his heart. "Dare," he whispered. He knew there was no going back. Sarah's smile was cold and cruel. "I dare you to look into the mirror and see the truth," she said. A large, ornate mirror appeared on the wall, its surface dark and foreboding. Jake approached it slowly, his reflection wavering in the dim light. As he gazed into the glass, the truth was revealed to him. He saw the faces of all those who had played the game before, their eyes hollow and filled with suffering. He saw the creature, its malevolent grin promising eternal torment. And he saw himself, trapped in an endless cycle of horror, a pawn in a game that would never end. Jake screamed, a sound of pure anguish that echoed through the basement and into the void beyond. The mirror shattered, and the darkness closed in around him. In the silence that followed, Sarah's voice echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the fate that awaited all who dared to play the game. "You are mine, forever," the voice rang. And so, the game continued, an endless cycle of terror and despair. The basement remained a place of nightmares, where the scent of cheap beer and stale cigarettes mingled with the stench of death. And I, a ghost in the darkness, watched as new victims fell into the trap, their lives ending in screams and blood. The keeper's voice whispered in my mind, a constant reminder of my eternal torment. "You are mine forever," it echoed. "Until next time, sleep tight."